Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Food School Smarter, Stronger, Leaner podcast on a mission to change the way the world eats. My name is Shurina, and I'm a certified nutritionist, health, nutrition, brain performance, brain productivity coach, and just someone with a lot of passion for nutrition and food, and sharing with you guys precise tools to change the way you look, feel, and do, so you could look, feel, and do your absolute best. Because guys, nutrition, food, it can do that for you. It can make you feel, look, and do better. Yesterday, while doing my after dinner walk, as I do every single day, it doesn't matter where I am, guys, whether I'm at an airport or I'm traveling or whatever the situation is. Maybe if I'm like on International Space Station, I wouldn't be able to do that because there is no gravity. But other than that, until I'm there, I'll be walking after dinners. And guys, on a side note of today's podcast, walking after your meals, not just after your dinner, but after any of your meals, especially meals rich in carbohydrates, is hands down the best tools. Well, except maybe for medications, but no, probably still overall is the best tool if we take into account the holistic effect on the whole body and health. So walking after your meals is the best tool to control your blood sugar and your metabolic health. Doing some sort of movement after your meals, especially again rich in carbohydrates, especially if your blood sugar regulation might already be compromised, walking, moving after your meals is the best tool. And I usually consume my carbohydrates in my fast breaking meal where I eat quite a lot of fruit. But that usually happens after my workouts right away. So, a lot of movement before. It empties out your glycogen, your carbohydrate stores in your body, and the fruit replenishes that. But even after that, I work standing, I do burpees and squats every 30 minutes, right? So there is always movement. And after dinner, when I eat another portion or a couple of servings of carbohydrate-rich foods like sweet potatoes or beans, that's when I also walk after my food, especially at night. Our blood glucose disposal and regulation, it's on a lower side, so you want to move to help your body to distribute that properly, to maintain balanced blood sugar, and also it helps with sleep because again you prime certain blood sugar metabolism with movement, certain distribution of that blood glucose and glycogen in your body, and that helps you with sleep, with recovery, and overall metabolic health, right? So walk after dinner. So while I was on the walk yesterday, my after dinner walk, I met a friend here in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. He's actually Mexican, but he's a world traveler. Anyhow, very interesting person, and he works as a emotional coach. So he helps people to deal with emotions, to adjust their emotions, to make them do and feel and live well, right? And he said, I really admire your consistency with your content, and I have a couple of questions for you. And he started to ask me about different foods, supplements, and protocols to adjust emotions that could help him in his work. And he was fascinated with the amount of tips and advice I gave to him and all the information based on neuroscience. And he shared with me what he knew and what he didn't know and what he thought was the other way. So, and we were talking, and we talked a lot about this aspect of nutrition and our personality traits. And guys, maybe you don't think about it often, but what we eat, our diets, they change our personality traits. They change our emotions, our thought patterns. And when you consistently have a certain dietary pattern, that creates certain consistent biochemistry in your body. Biochemistry, or blood chemistry, is basically what kind of chemicals circulate, what kind of compounds and molecules circulate in your bloodstream, through your body, throughout your body, and in your brain. And that actually primes different reactions, different interactions between cells, nerve cells, regular cells, between organs and tissues. And foods, food, we eat pounds of it. It changes our biochemistry, not just our blood sugar and blood lipids, everything. It changes our blood so much in so many ways. And yes, it's transient, but also if we do something consistently, it becomes a pattern. And your body, your brain, they start to expect it. And then they react in a certain way to those events of changed biochemistry, blood chemistry. So your body, your whole system, they react in a certain way. And that produces certain feelings. Because a feeling is a reaction, analysis of your brain, of your body, of what's happening inside. Maybe you think, I choose my emotions, or events outside trigger my emotions. Well, that's true to a point, of course. But also what's true is your final emotion is the accumulation of what's happening inside of your body and in your outside environment, how you interpret consciously your outside environment. And then your brain analyzes that interpretation and adds to the data that coming from inside of your body of different metabolic processes. And that's when you get an emotional and mental state. And you get your emotions, your thoughts, and that in turn trigger certain behaviors. And so if you in your life, like I did many times actually, ever change your diet radically long term, like going vegan, for example, right? Or then from vegan to carnivore almost, right? To keto. If you change your diet dramatically and then you analyzed your life looking backwards, you would notice that your personality, the way you approach the world, the actions, the decisions that you take and make, it all changes radically. And now when I'm looking back, I'm like, my vegan days for my career, my persistency, business things were not that great. And that was because certain neurotransmitters, for example, were not optimized among other reasons, right? I lacked certain fatty acids, certain amino acids, so basically certain proteins and fats. And my blood chemistry, my brain chemistry was completely different from what it is now. And yes, there are other factors involved, but diet is a huge factor because, again, you eat pounds of food every day. Don't you think that affects your chemistry inside your body and in your brain in a big way? Like, you take a little bit of medicine and you know what a pronounced effect, what a dramatic effect it can have on your state. Well, pounds of food do pretty much the same, guys. That's why eating some foods can make you feel lethargic and brain fog and anxious, actually. You just not always make that connection, but that's what food does. It changes your state, whether you make this conscious connection or not. Certain meals, certain foods make you feel a certain way, make you make certain decisions, make you take certain actions, and that shapes the course of your life. And every one of you guys, you know that certain foods make you feel a certain way. And that's a deep connection that is happening to all of us. So that's what we were talking yesterday with a friend of mine on my evening after dinner walk, to cut a long story short. And this is all to create a frame for what I'm about to tell you, to share with you. Chocolate, dark chocolate. I'm specifically talking about 100% chocolate, cacao beans, all the pure cacao products. There is a lot of data showing that eating dark chocolate doesn't just increase blood circulation towards our brain with all the nutrients and oxygen helping our brain to perform better. What chocolate does, like probably no other food, because, for example, chocolate is one of the two known richer sources of anandamide molecule, bliss molecule, similar in effect to what's found in marijuana, but in much smaller proportion. But anandamide, what is cool about it? It is the molecule that your brain actually creates itself when you are in a flow state. But chocolate is basically the only richer source of it. The other one is black truffles, and most of us will never be eating black truffles. So basically chocolate is the only available source for most of us. So chocolate has this molecule, and it also has phytochemicals that help to maintain higher levels of anandamide in the brain by not allowing it to be broken down easily, because that's what usually happens. So chocolate has that. But then also it stimulates the production of 4 other neurochemicals that are present in flow state. Flow state is the state when you basically do your best work, you enjoy it, and you don't even notice how the time passes. A lot of breakthroughs in science, in business, a lot of ideas, a lot of very innovative solutions come to people when they're in a flow state. Now, chocolate has this distinct feature as it stimulates all the chemicals that your brain is flooded when in a flow state. And those chemicals are norepinephrine or adrenaline, dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and anandamide. So those are 5 major brain chemicals of flow. And chocolate either stimulates them, contains precursors for them, or the richer source, like in the case of anandamide, of them. Right? So chocolate is a very unique food that helps you to change your state by changing your brain chemistry, just as we talked how different foods compounds change our blood chemistry, changed our metabolic processes, and that changes how we feel, what we think, what state we are in, and that changes decisions we make, ideas that come to us, actions that we take, and that shapes the course of our life, our personality, our character. So chocolate, quite a unique food in that way. And guys, chocolate, if you didn't know that, by itself, without anything added, like cacao beans that chocolate is made of, or 100% chocolate, even though I think there is some fiber removed for the more fluid experience of chocolate bar, right? But 100% chocolate is basically cacao beans with maybe removal of some fiber. Even though a chocolate bar still has fiber, believe it or not. So chocolate, cacao beans, they are actually much closer by nutrition content to nut as to any other substance. Chocolate is pretty much a nut, even though I believe it's a seed of a cacao fruit. If you also didn't know that, cacao fruit is actually sweet. They say that it's very pleasurable. I have not yet had a chance to try it, and I'm looking into that since I'm in one of the countries, Mexico, that actually produces chocolate, and where cacao is a plant that grows naturally. So cacao beans, they are closer to nutrition profile of a nut. To give you a better idea, 30 grams, 1 ounce of cacao beans have about 130 calories. Again, you can see similarities with nuts. About 4 grams of protein, about 100 calories come from fat. I believe it is about 10 grams of fat. And about 2 grams of carbohydrate per 1 ounce of chocolate. So cacao bean actually very low carb food, high in fat, kind of like moderate in protein for a plant. So it is almost like a nut when it comes to nutrition. So carbohydrates are low, quite some fiber, and cacao beans are actually 9 grams of fiber per 1 ounce if you take cacao beans in their pure form, or cacao nibs, also the same thing, right? So 9 grams of fiber per 1 ounce. Then we have 4 grams of protein, we have about 10 grams of fat, 10 grams of fat, and we have 1-2 grams of carbohydrate. When it comes to vitamins and minerals, there is quite a rich mineral profile. So we get 27% of daily requirement for manganese, 25% of copper. We get 16% of magnesium requirement, and I'm talking about just 1 ounce. We get 9% of phosphorus, also some calcium, like 2%. We get 6% of zinc, of iron, and even potassium that we need a lot of, almost like 210 milligrams of potassium. So magnesium, zinc, iron, copper, manganese, phosphorus, potassium. So as you can see, cacao bean in itself nutritionally is quite a rich food. Yeah, we need to balance it out because, it's quite rich in calories. So we need to watch out for those. Also, it has some caffeine, even though it is less than in tea, especially in 30 grams. Yeah, it's about maybe like weak tea kind of caffeine. And it is also combined with all these phytochemicals, so it make it in its activity different. But I would, of course, not recommend to consume a lot of chocolate prior to bed sleep. Probably in the late-ish afternoon, you should be consuming a lot of dark chocolate. But in the first part of your day, do consume chocolate, because it does not only increases the blood circulation towards your brain, it also has all these nutrients that are great for your brain and your overall metabolism and health. It is also stimulates all 5 brain chemicals that are present in flow, and it is basically the richer source of anandamide, this bliss molecule that is also important for memory, appetite, sleep, well-being. Anandamide, bliss molecule, very important molecule in our brain, and chocolate is basically the richer source. It helps also your brain to maintain higher levels of anandamide made internally, so to speak. So chocolate. Don't look lightly at, these specific foods, because your food, it changes your chemistry, it changes your thoughts, your emotions, your states, and what you do and how your life turns out. And chocolate, again, it is quite a unique compound. Here in Mexico, ancient tribes of Maya, Aztec, they called it food of the god, because they noticed that it produced certain states. They made it into a bitter drink, basically like kind of dark chocolate, but very coarse with spices, and it had no sweetness whatsoever. But they would give it to their shamans to connect to like higher realms. It has this pronounced effect on your brain. Also, if you have a company, if you are an entrepreneur, if you have a team you work with, prescribe them chocolate 30 minutes before the bout of creative work, maybe brainstorming, innovation session, maybe a session of coding that requires creativity and flow. I'm not saying it's going to guarantee a flow state, but I am saying that it's going to make it easier to get in the flow and stay there. So dark chocolate, 100% bar, cacao beans, cacao powder, maybe dark chocolate, but try to stay away from added sugars, because that creates a completely different brain chemistry that might kick you out of flow state, right? So low sugar, or things like stevia possibly, or monk fruit as a sweetener if you decide to choose dark chocolate drink. Dark chocolate bar, for me, that's my solution. Eating cacao beans also is my solution. Try it with your team 30 minutes before your brainstorming creative innovation session, either individually or as a group working or something, and let me know how it works for you. I've been a fan of chocolate for years. I eat it as a freaking medicine or multivitamin every single day. By the way, Switzerland, one of the countries that have the most Nobel laureates per, if you take the whole population and the amount of people who got Nobel Prize, Switzerland has one of the highest percentages, and they eat the most chocolate per person in the whole country, in the whole world, right? Even though they grow no chocolate, but they seem to be loving it. Like, if you go to Switzerland, you'll know what I mean. Chocolate is everywhere, especially around holidays. that's a side note, another side note. So guys, I hope you found this Friday episode interesting and fascinating, and I hope it inspires you to eat more dark chocolate. If you have any questions about dark chocolate, please join my live Q&A that's going to be happening at 12:15 US Eastern Standard Time or 5:15 London time on my Instagram at 1000yearyoung. So if you have any questions, bring them there. I'm gonna answer them and share more fascinating information about chocolate, cacao, the best practices, and why it's so amazing for your productivity, your creative ideas, creative flow. So come to my live on Instagram, 12:15 standard US Standard Eastern Time. Ask your questions, eat more chocolate, share this episode, and till next time, as usual, guys, eat better daily.